Today we're going to be mixing together Arctic Fox in the color Ritual and Virgin Pink. So to start, you may notice that my swatches are labeled 1 through 12. I do quickly just want to say that is not synonymous with hair levels. I do different video clips and pictures and such throughout the video, so numbers just help us keep track of each swatch color. They are human hair swatches, but they are not virgin hair, so they've all been chemically colored, bleached, or treated at some point in their existences. One is green. I kind of wanted to see how it would turn out underneath these two mixed together. 2 is a cool tone gray, 3 is a natural red, 4 is black, and then 4 to 11 is a range that goes to a platinum blonde, and then 12 is like a toned version of number 11. So with my mix videos, I usually will do 2 to 3 different ratios. Since these are kind of in the same color family, I'm just going to do 2 mixes today. So I'll do one at the top of the swatch and one at the bottom. So we're going to start with the 2 to 1 ratio. So that's going to be 1 part of the Ritual to 2 parts of Virgin Pink. For this mix, I actually started with an equal parts, but it looked a lot like Ritual on its own. So I decided to add in just a little bit more Virgin Pink so we can hopefully see more of a difference. I am really curious to see how this will turn out because I know Virgin Pink, even though it's a lighter color compared to Ritual, it is quite pigmented. So I'm wondering if it'll take more on the hair than it looks like it would in the mix, if that makes sense. I've had that happen before with certain colors. But now we're going to do the second ratio, which is going to be an 8 to 1 ratio. So that is going to be, again, 1 part of the Ritual to 8 parts Virgin Pink. And I quickly want to just say that everyone's hair is different, which means everyone's hair will take color differently. So please just use my video as a reference for how this could possibly turn out for you. Now I'm gonna let these sit for about an hour. I will then rinse them out, and when they're dry, I will meet you back here so we can do some comparisons. It was really strange because when I first did this mix in the bowl, it looked a lot like Ritual on its own, which is why I kept adding more and more Virgin Pink. And then I applied it to the swatches and I felt like it looked really pink, so I was kind of freaking out. Wasn't sure if I added too much, but I think now seeing it like this, I'm pretty happy with the result. So I do just want to remind everyone again that my swatches are not virgin hair. So if you have hair that's never been dyed before, especially with like a chemical dye or bleached or treated with any kind of anything chemical wise, your results definitely could be more different than mine, especially if your hair is darker. The closer to blonde it is, the easier time you will probably have with dyeing your hair if it is virgin. So I always recommend doing a strand test when doing your own hair. I will say though, Virgin Pink is considered to be a very pigmented color, so something like this would actually be a better option for you if your hair is virgin versus maybe something lighter. In fact, I do see a difference on pretty much all of the swatches except the number 4 black swatch. The one was originally green. It covered beautifully on both the top and the bottom. It definitely turned out a little bit more kind of, I'd say, purple and dark compared to the rest of the swatches. But overall, it still has that same magenta fuchsia look that the rest of the swatches have. 2 was the gray. As usual, that one usually turns out probably the most cool toned of all my swatches, and I'd say the same thing happened here. I'd say I can see a little bit more pinky tones coming through on the number 2 swatch, but it's really not that far off from, say, the number 12 swatch that was toned beforehand. 3 was the natural red. Sometimes having a natural red base can change the outcome of a color, but on my swatches for this dye in particular, I don't feel like it's that much different than maybe like the 7 or even the 6. So 3, 6, and 7 all took the color on the top and the bottom. I would say that the bottom, you can actually see the color a little bit better, at least in this lighting. And I think that's because the dye itself turned out a little bit lighter and not quite as dark. The top half that's a little bit darker almost looks a little bit more natural on the 3 and the 6. Not saying it does look natural, but more natural. It almost looks like it's a burgundy undertoned brown hair, if that makes sense. I'm sure in more natural lighting, it's probably more obvious, but we are in house lighting with a ring light currently. But again, virgin pink is quite pigmented, so even on the bottom half, it looks quite pinky, but not, I don't think, as pink as it would if it were just virgin pink by itself. Again, 4, I don't see a difference. 5 is probably the most natural looking swatch compared to the rest of my swatches, because I'd say it still looks relatively brown. Again, in natural lighting, it probably did change the undertone quite a bit, because I do still see in this lighting some warmth coming through, and I can tell that it's not the same brown that it was before, but it still looks brown in comparison to the rest. If we're looking at the top mix, I would say 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 all look pretty similar, so you don't even need your hair to be like a platinum blonde to get a nice result. And then for the bottom mix, I would say 9, 10, 11, and 12 look similar, but 8 definitely took. It just looks a little bit more warm in undertone, where the 9, 10, 11, and 12 looks slightly more cool and leans a little bit more magenta. I think the 8 looks a little bit more fuchsia. So as for comparisons, I thought it would be good to start with Arctic Fox's Ritual just so we can see the difference. So this is comparable to number 12, 11, 10, and this is comparable to number 9. So Ritual actually came out when my channel was pretty new, so my numbering system is now different, and the way that I do my swatches is different as well. So I used to do 2 separate diluted parts so we could see like how light it gets, but I stopped doing that. But the top half here, the smaller area, is going to be the direct dye portion. I will put a piece of paper on top just so we can see the direct dye without getting too distracted. Now, if you'd like me to redo Ritual, feel free to request it. If I get enough requests, I will redo it since it is an older video of mine now. So even though this is a burgundy color, the thing I noticed about Ritual is that it was supposed to be kind of a little more muted, I would say. I don't know if I want to go as far to say that it's a dusty color, but it's definitely not quite as saturated as some dye. And the problem with more muted colors is that they often are not as pigmented. So even though it looks like a darker color, it can oftentimes only really take on lighter hair. And I'm not saying that's completely the case with Ritual. It could just be my swatches. But that's the one thing I'm finding I really like with this mix, is that virgin pink is very pigmented. So adding a little bit of the virgin pink keeps the depth and the color of Ritual pretty close, but it also makes it very, very pigmented. So for some people who have very porous hair, Ritual probably would take very well, but if you're someone who does not have porous hair or even just virgin hair, mixing a little bit of virgin pink in will probably actually get you a really good result. I would say it even kept the undertone pretty consistent compared to Ritual on the top mix. And then I thought I would drag this down really quick just so you can see the difference. The more virgin pink you add, the less burgundy it looks. It starts to lean in that pink direction. It gets a little bit less purpley looking, but you can definitely get a really nice berry color with this mix, and I think that's my favorite part. I usually like to try and find some similar colors for all of my comparisons. So from what I could tell, the Lunar Tides in the color Fuchsia is the closest. So this is comparable to number 12, 11, 10, and 9. You can see that the fuchsia is a lot more warm in undertone. I would say that this mix is probably leaning a little bit more magenta, especially on the bottom half. So I feel like the Lunar Tides is actually a little bit more similar to the bottom half of the mix that has a little bit more virgin pink. But if you look at the 11 and 12, the fuchsia definitely still has a little bit more warmth. I think the 9 and the 10 are a little bit more similar, but overall it does still seem like the Arctic Fox mix leans more purple. And overall, most of my colors that are similar that I could find all did lean a little bit too warm to be the same. So if you like the Lunar Tides fuchsia but you want it to be actually a little bit more warm in undertone, the next in line that I currently have done is the Manic Panic fuchsia shock. That one's just a little bit more on the reddish warm side. So now I'd like to do our before and after clips. Those, as well as everything after this point in the video, is all going to be done in natural lighting. I hope my video helped. If you have a request, I do have a link below to a Google form you can fill out. Just please remember, I only do brands that do not test on animals. Thank you so very, very much to my patrons, and thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in my next video.